Finally. Oh my God. This has been quite the journey with you all, sitting and waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting even more. But now we're finally here. WB Games Montreal and Rocksteady game reveals confirmed for DC Fandom on August 22nd, which is, as I'm recording this today, 1 week away. So I want to explain how we know this game is going to be coming out this year, short of any delay that we haven't heard about, but that's certainly possible given the COVID situation. But I think that this game is much closer than we think it is. Looking back at MK11, there was 4 months between announcement and launch, and that's probably going to be the same situation with this game, as that was the last main big game that WB Games released. We also have even more evidence of this that I'm going to delve into in this video, and really everything is pointing towards this game coming out in just a few months towards the end of this year. Before we get into this video, let's try to get 2,000 likes. I'd really appreciate it, and thank you for the support on all the videos. So let's backtrack and walk through how we know this to be true. On June 19th, 2020, a website called thegww.com, also known as Geeks Worldwide, released an exclusive that said DC Fandom Digital Convention is scheduled for August. Again, look at that date of June 19th. That's very important. Sources at the GWW have received information and documentation that DC is planning to host a free multimedia virtual event experience on August 22nd, currently titled DC Fandom. It is planned to only be accessible for a 24-hour period starting at 10 a.m. and with a global book event that promises new announcements from DC games, film, TV, blah, blah, blah. Then, I shit you not, on June 15th, DC officially announced exactly what the GWW said in this article. Everything was exactly correct, even the time that it starts at, being 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Clearly, say what you will about the site, I don't know a lot about them, but I know that they're right about everything they've reported on so far about DC Fandom and Batman. Since the GWW clearly has reputable sources over at DC, let's get into what they say is going to be in the new Batman game and all of the details about the game that they know. Their article reads as follows. Sources close to GWW have confirmed that WB Montreal's new Batman game is a soft reboot of the critically acclaimed Batman Arkham franchise. The new Batman game will kick off a new, somewhat cohesive DC Games universe. Shortly after its release this fall, it will be followed up by a next-gen DC game from the creators of Batman Arkham franchise, Rocksteady Studios, which we've heard is a new Suicide Squad game. The roadmap from there is foggy. Sources have said that a next-gen Superman game is also in the works at WB, but nothing confirmed yet. Again, the guys that got everything right about DC Fandom are saying that the second game in development at WB Games Montreal, because if you remember there are two, it is not just the Batman game, is a Superman game, is that second game being worked on. And they also got right that Rocksteady is making a Suicide Squad game. This article was also written in June, months before the reveal earlier this month in August. The GWW is not the only person who has heard the game is coming out in November, though. YouTuber K-Wing said that he had also heard mumblings that the game was coming out in November.
The things that I'm hearing about this stuff, I mean, an August reveal with the game coming out in November of 2020, that's kind of crazy because that's hardly any promotion time, and I want to say that's a no-go, but based on how well the digital sales of Animal Crossing and Doom did, I wouldn't put it past Warner Brothers doing that.
And comicbook.com did a write-up on his report, which K-Wing was unhappy with, and he responded that he was not in any way delivering a scoop, but he was rather just reporting on some mumblings that he has heard in the industry, but not saying anything definitively. Nonetheless, that bit of evidence only supplements what we've heard from the GWW and other sources, which are saying that this game is coming out in November. Now, as we have seen with Halo Infinite, it's certainly possible that the game will be delayed. There's no question about that. I'm not denying that in any way. But even if it is delayed, at the very latest summer of next year, and even then more realistically Q1 of 2021, that's even if the game gets delayed at all. I think that this is just a lot closer than people are anticipating. It's going to be a quick turnaround. It's what they like to do over at WB. It's what they did with MK11 as well, with that 3 to 5 month turnaround window from announcement to release. It's just something that WB has always loved to do, even going back to the Batman Arkham games. Now, Rocksteady has kind of transcended above their typical marketing model, and that game, I think, probably won't come out until late 2021. So we're still probably over a year away from that game, but the new Batman game probably will be coming first. Here's something that sweetens the deal even more. Again, just throwing more evidence at you. Epic Games, the creators of Fortnite, announced the following. Create some chaos, wreak some havoc, and embrace the madness with the Joker, Poison Ivy, and Medeus Rex outfits. Available November 17th in the Last Laugh bundle. So on November 17th, Batman villains are going to be coming to Fortnite the game. November 17th of this year, which is when the game is leaked to be announced. So this is something that is very common amongst marketing strategies between different companies. You have this cross-promotion, whereas, for instance, you typically see that with movies and like Mountain Dew or Coca-Cola, where they will time marketing pitches and launch two marketing campaigns together simultaneously to promote the same product. I had to guess this Fortnite DLC with Batman villains like the Joker and Poison Ivy is probably going to be releasing on the same day as the new Batman game. So November 17th might be something to look out for. Again, this is all just on top of what we've heard from K-Wing and the GWW and other sources that the game is coming out in November. So, I mean, we're obviously going to find out on August 22nd. We will get that release date, but it's just something to look out for. Now, a couple days ago, I launched a poll that nearly 6,000 people voted on, just on my YouTube page, not even including my Twitter poll, which probably will put it over 10,000 voters. And I asked, which superhero game are you the most excited for coming out in the next couple years? We have Marvel's Avengers that comes out next month, Spider-Man Miles Morales that comes out in November, Batman Gotham Knights, which is leaked to come out in November, and Rocksteady's Suicide Squad game that will be hitting next year. And I asked the simple question, which game are you the most excited for? While only 17% of my subscribers voted for Spider-Man Miles Morales, 12% voted for Rocksteady's Suicide Squad game, and 65% of those polled voted for Batman Gotham Knights, the new Batman game from WB Games Montreal. I was discussing this last night in my live stream with Irgen. I really feel as though the hype for this new Batman game is off the charts, even relative to Rocksteady's new game. And yes, Rocksteady is a more legendary studio compared to WB Games Montreal. WB Montreal has only made one AAA game. I am not really concerned about that because they've hired incredible talent that were not there during Arkham Origins, like Patrick Redding, who worked on Splinter Cell. He is now the creative director over at WB Games Montreal. When you have incredible talent like that, of course you're going to make great games, and this game is probably going to beat Arkham Origins by a long mile, and even probably some of the earlier Arkham games as well. Anyway, getting back to what I was discussing, I just think it's astounding. The hype for this game is much, much higher, and even doing live streams. I did a Q&A on the Suicide Squad game, and everyone was just kind of, it was okay. I enjoyed it, but I didn't get a lot of interest from the audience. And then as soon as I did my live stream on the new Batman game, everyone was coming out of the woodworks. We had hundreds and hundreds of people in the stream, and it was just insane in that chat. And the hype for this game is much, much higher than Rocksteady's Suicide Squad game at this point. I was describing it in the stream like this. I mean, Batman was all of our gateway drug into DC Comics. For some people, it might have been the Superman movie, someone that may be older in their 40s or 50s, but for all of us young folk, we really got into DC Comics because of Batman. That's the reason I now like the Suicide Squad. I would have never been into the Suicide Squad if it were not for Batman. And I would have never been into Poison Ivy or these other characters if it were not for Batman. So he's our gateway drug into the DC Comics world. That's why we have such a strong resonance for him. That's why we want continued Batman games. I find this hilarious because I remember several years ago when we were talking about the Damian Wayne Batman game that was essentially rebooted, that everyone was saying, we don't want a new Batman game. No, we want Rocksteady to do something else. We want these studios to do other things. And now Rocksteady is like, okay, now we're doing something totally different, and the interest is much, much lower compared to a new Batman game. It's just funny how that works. It's kind of like, careful what you wish for. That's all I'm saying. Now, the feedback for the Rocksteady Suicide Squad game has not been negative by any means. Do not get me wrong, but I think it is not as positive as they were probably expecting. This trailer really needs to blow us away, whereas with the new Batman game, it's like, yeah, it's a Batman game. We don't really care what you show in the trailer. We're just going to be hyped. They could just show a bat logo and then a title for the game and then say 2020, and then we would all be hyped and lose it. But for Suicide Squad, they have to show us something impressive because right now people are not that excited for the game as it currently stands. As I said, this is keeping in mind we haven't even seen a CGI trailer. But I do anticipate the hype for Rocksteady Suicide Squad game going up quite a bit once we see a CGI trailer. We'll get into more of the feedback about Suicide Squad a little later in this video, but it's great to see so many people excited for the new Batman game. And I really like the idea that it's a soft reboot, again, coming from the GWW. It's going to be kind of loosely connected to Batman Arkham, but it'll be its own thing in many ways, and is not going to be tied so stringently to the Batman Arkham canon. One of my biggest complaints about Batman Arkham Origins, WB Games Montreal's other AAA video game, is that it does complicate and create some issues with the Batman Arkham canon a little bit, nothing major, but the timeline stuff is really off in that game. They did not put a lot of thought into the timeline that Rocksteady has set up. Not only that, it didn't evolve the Batman Arkham games enough. There wasn't enough new stuff in it. It felt and played way too much like Batman Arkham City. And when you play Batman Arkham Knight versus Arkham City, they play completely differently. Rocksteady completely revolutionized and evolved the Batman Arkham combat and gameplay. The whole aesthetic of the game is totally different, more modern, all that fun stuff. But when you play Origins, it does just feel like an extension of Batman Arkham City in many ways. they've had the chance to gather all of that negative criticism of Origins. They've had the chance to look at what went wrong with the Batmobile in Arkham Knight and respond to some of the feedback of the story in Origins and Knight. And they've learned a lot from the feedback from those games. And I really do believe they can make the best Batman Arkham game of all time. Just, it won't be called Arkham. It will be the best Batman game of all time. I don't know that definitively because Batman Arkham City is incredible, obviously, and it's difficult to beat. But this game is going to be so much larger. The gameplay will be so much better and more evolved. Arkham City, it does age a bit when you go back and play it as it pertains to the gameplay in particular. I want to see the gameplay, the storytelling evolve in the same ways that Insomniac evolved the storytelling of Spider-Man games with more cutscenes, more high-level acting stuff, and just incredible moments between all the characters, and I really do believe WB Montreal can deliver that in this game. Not only that, all 4 of the Batman Arkham games are quintessentially solo hero games, and Batman Gotham Knights, which is the name of the game, is going to be hopefully a more collaborative experience between other members of the Bat family. And that's what we really want to see from this game. More interaction with Robin, Nightwing, Batgirl, and other characters who are kind of tangentially on the side. They help us from time to time in City and Night, but ultimately, it really is Batman as a one-man show with Alfred and Barbara Gordon on the intercoms helping him out. I think I really want to see these other characters take a huge front seat in this game alongside Batman, being co-stars and main characters to the game, and I think that goes along with the Gotham Knights title. That makes sense to me. I'd be very surprised if they didn't take it in that direction, and frankly disappointed, because that's what we really want to see, is more of those characters and a little bit of a deeper dive into the Batman universe beyond just the Joker, the high-level villains, and getting a glimpse of our allies. Rather, we want to delve very deep into our allies and these other heroes, move past what they did in the Batman Arkham games, and additionally get a deeper dive into Batman's rogues gallery with more side mission villains and more C-list characters, more D-list characters, characters from the animated series and comics that you probably wouldn't know if it weren't for the game. Not to say that they can't do anything with Penguin, Two-Face, Riddler, but they've used them quite a bit in the previous Batman games, and it'd be interesting to see them evolve past using them altogether and shift to new characters. That is what they were doing with the canceled Damian Wayne Batman game. That's why they had this White Rabbit who was in on an oxygen tank, and she looked like a grandma. She's like 70 years old or something. That was a very interesting creative choice, and perhaps they'll carry that over. I'm all down for it. Even when I think back on Arkham Knight, the best side mission in that game was probably the Professor Pig side mission. Now, Professor Pig is a C, maybe even D-list character, but the side mission was so fun and off the walls that it was just a great time. Meanwhile, the Penguin and Two-Face side missions, they were just blah. I mean, not that good at all, very repetitive and boring. So I wonder if there is enough that they can even do to evolve these characters for side missions, and if they should just shift to new characters altogether. So I did a commentary recently with Jake on the Anonymous Throwdown podcast. I will link it in the description below of some of the things that I want to see in the new Batman game, features and otherwise. I will reserve judgment too much until we see the game on August 22nd, because some of the things I'm saying could be totally off base from what we're actually going to get. But ultimately, new vehicles, Batwing and Batcycle, Batbike would be very interesting new gadgets to have. They were working on the Batbike in the Damian Wayne Batman game, and I think that will probably carry over into this game. Let's propose a challenge having civilians in the game. That's another thing that Arkham fans have been very vocal about, that we want civilians in the new game. And they have this opportunity to respond to that feedback, and one way that they can address those concerns and actually have civilians in the game is, instead of having Batman drive this gigantic tank around that mows down and murders everything in its path, you can have a Batbike that is nimble and quick and can quickly get around civilians and pedestrians and other things, so that Batman doesn't mow down any civilians in his crime-fighting endeavors. We do want a Gotham that feels lived in, alive, like Grand Theft Auto or these other open-world games where you feel like you are in that city and you feel like you are living in that world. I want to experience that in a new Batman game as well. And it's hard to do that when the city's abandoned and it's just bad guys all around the city and no good guys, no civilians. You don't get to see who you're saving. And that's something that you never get in the Batman Arkham games. You never get to see who you're helping, who you're saving, and that gratitude of that moment as the hero swooping in and saving someone. Now, in Arkham City, you had those little side missions where people were being beaten up, like journalists and reporters and stuff were being beaten up by the inmates in Arkham City. That was kind of cool, but that's not really what I'm talking about. I'm talking about getting the grasp of the implications of the work that Batman is doing and how that affects civilians. I mean, people are going to work, people are doing stuff, people have kids. And how is Batman's interactions with his villains impacting that in the city? Moreover, I'd like to see evolutions in the gameplay of the Batman Arkham games. The free-flow combat set up by Rocksteady is iconic. It is now replicated and copied by pretty much every game studio on the planet, and WB Montreal is welcome to borrow some of those gameplay mechanics. However, I really want to see Batgirl, Robin, Tim Drake, Nightwing, all these other characters play completely differently and having tons of gadgets. One thing I liked about Spider-Man PS4
is that Spider-Man had so many gadgets in that game, upwards of 20, I believe. And I think that Batman should have 15 gadgets, and Batgirl should have 15 gadgets. And of course, there will be some carryover. They're taught under the same model. They're trained by Batman. Of course, they're going to use similar combat styles, similar gadgets, and other things. But I also think that there should be unique ways in which it transforms the gameplay. Whereas we can do co-op, and let's say we have Nightwing, Batman, Batgirl, and Robin. And it's like if I'm stuck playing Robin or what have you, it doesn't feel like, oh, I'm just a Batman light. I'm a reduced Batman, and I don't want to play Robin, and everyone fights over playing Batman. We have heard this game probably has multiplayer and co-op elements. We want it to feel like each player is unique and plays in their own way, kind of like in Marvel's Avengers, where each has their own abilities. They're equally as strong to one another. There are slight disparities in the strength of each character, but by and large, if you're playing Hulk versus Iron Man, you can stand your own either way. Whereas in Batman Arkham Knight, when you're playing as Batgirl, you only get 2 gadgets. You pretty much get Batarangs, and that's it. Instead, it should be like she gets totally unique gadgets that complement her unique fighting style. Think about it. Batgirl, she weighs about half of what Batman does. She's 5'5", 5'6" in the comics, something like that. So she's shorter. She weighs pretty much nothing compared to Batman, and she has less muscle. Right? That may be triggering to some people that Batgirl's not as strong as Batman, but it's just objectively true. What does she do to gain an advantage over the people she's fighting when she is at that inherent disadvantage compared to someone like Nightwing or someone like Batman? And the answer is through unique gadgets and other abilities, kicking, fighting techniques that are slightly varied to what Batman does, which is more brute force, whereas Batgirl might be a little faster and sly and sleek. So it's just a great way to differentiate these characters. It's not a good nor a bad thing to play as Batgirl versus Robin. Rather, it's just that they play entirely differently. They rely upon their strengths, and they utilize different gadgets and abilities to take down their enemies, and that makes the co-op fun because they complement one another. And even though they basically more or less fight the same, they're trained under the same martial arts, sort of style from Batman, I guess. They're trained by the same person, obviously, but ultimately they have slight variations of one another. So I wanted to play what some people think about Rocksteady's Suicide Squad game. Here is Greg Miller. He's a known DC superfan, host of Game Over Greggy at IGN, and now he's at Kinda Funny Games. And I wanted to just play his initial gut reaction to the Suicide Squad game because I think it parallels a lot of what you guys are thinking as well.
Wrestling, it's rare, I feel, and I know this is going to be, it sounds goofy, but if we put aside all the characters and you remember that the Greg Miller you listen to talk about video games is many different things and an actor and entertainer as well. Not a good actor, but you know what I mean. I feel this is one of those rare occasions where I feel like I do feel my fanboyism wrestling with video game pundit, critic, whatever the hell I am side, my professional side, right? My heart versus my head kind of thing. Because I'm a cauldron of emotions about this. Because my first and foremost is like, okay, I've known for a while it's going to be Suicide Squad, like a long time it's going to be Suicide Squad. And to get it today, to get this teaser trailer or poster and look at it, I'm of two minds of it, where number one, fuck yeah, let's go. God damn, I love Rocksteady. Rocksteady has earned all of my faith, all of it. You know what I mean? Like their Batman trilogy is unrivaled in so many different ways and so amazing. And there's so much love in it. And they clearly get the character and they clearly get DC. And you know, fuck yeah. Rocksteady's amazing. I trust them. I believe in them. I am hyped to see it at Fandom. I was already excited for Fandom in general because I'm a DC dork. I'm excited to see it there. I'm excited to finally get to play it one day. I'm excited to have it and, you know, go crazy with it. But then there is this side of me, the fanboy side of me, this is exactly what you're talking about, Blessing, where it's just like, I've never cared about Suicide Squad. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I like Harley. I do like Harley, but like, I've tried with the comics. Tom Taylor, one of my favorite writers, is writing the Suicide Squad right now. And it's just, or what did it? I think he did. He's still doing, I think, but he might have already finished his run. But like, it was that thing of like, I couldn't get motivated. I picked up issue 1 and I was like, all right, like, it's just, the way I put it today on Twitter, right, is like, to look at this and have, I feel and granted, I could be totally wrong. The Greg Miller pitch of the game start to solidify really quickly of, cool. The Justice League has lost a fight to a main baddie. Amanda Waller calls in the Suicide Squad, Task Force X. They have to go stop the Justice League. We continually fight them up the ladder till we get to Superman, right? And I imagine we fight him in the Fortress of Solitude. I think it would be awesome if we got to fight Wonder Woman, but she's on Themyscira, so we have to like stealthily infiltrate the island and do this. Batman's in the cave. Like, there's all these cool scenarios I can start setting up and talking about and going for, but the way I describe it is it's the same as if you told me, hey, Greg, there's a new Ghostbusters game. And I'd be like, oh, fuck yeah, tell me about it. And it's like, all right, you play as the ghosts and you go after the Ghostbusters. And I'm like, that's that's not the fantasy. That's not what I want to do. And I know that I'm talking very specifically for me, Greg Miller, comic book fan, Superman fan. But like that, I feel that this niche is saturated, right? And the way I talked about it today is like, and these are all properties I enjoy in some way, shape, or form, right? But like Injustice, The Boys, the DCEU in general, like I've seen the gritty, dark Superman. I've seen the anti-heroes that they're just a bunch of bad guys, but they got to come together and get this job done. And that works in a lot of ways. And again, to be a full stop and have the critic come in, it's going to work here. Rocksteady's Rocksteady. They have done nothing not to have my complete faith in them being able to pull this off. But back to the fan thing, I'm just like, I don't want to. It's going to be a games as a service where I'm going to be King Shark or I'm going to be Deadshot or I'm even Harley. Like I'm just not that. I didn't even buy the Harley skin in Fortnite because that's just not my thing. And I understand that is people's things, and I'm not trying to gatekeep and keep you out of what you want. But it's just like the way I put it today, right? Is like I liked it. So go read my tweets because they're way more eloquent than I'm putting out right now, right? Of just like I just feel like I've seen all that darkness before. Like the game of like, I don't want to hunt the Justice League. I want to be the Justice League.
Okay, guys, let me know what you think about the new Batman game, Rocksteady Suicide Squad game. Leave all of your thoughts in the comments section below. Ultimately, I'm very excited for both games. I understand Greg Miller's criticisms of the game, but ultimately, this is not just a Suicide Squad game. This is not Suicide Squad fighting Enchantress. Rather, Enchantress is on the Suicide Squad, and you are fighting against Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman. That just makes the game inherently fun and exciting. It's a totally unique pitch, and it's the only way that I think they could have done a Suicide Squad game for it to be as interesting as a Batman Arkham game. But the fact that Superman, Amanda Waller, these other characters in the DC Comics universe are going to be roped in, and it's not just going to be like, oh, Harley Quinn, Deadshot. It's going to be even deeper than that into the DC universe. That makes me very excited. Let me know your thoughts on this video in the comment section below, and let me know what you want to see in the new Batman game and your thoughts on DC fandom on August 22nd, what you want to see out of the new Batman game and Rocksteady Suicide Squad game in terms of villains, combat, heroes, like all that stuff. I really will be reading all of your comments in this video because I'm very curious to know what you guys have to say. Shout out to all my members. I gained over 15 members yesterday alone. People are really enjoying the Sunday members only uploads. Every single Sunday you get a bonus commentary that only members get access to. If you want to gain access to that, just click the link in the description below. It's only $5 a month. So get badges and emojis and emotes in my streams that only members gain access to. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and I will see you guys in the next video or live stream. Peace out.